Welcome to the AthleteEngine podcast, where we talk with amateur and professional athletes from a broad variety of sports. We're sitting down with our AthleteEngine members and asking them to share their training tips, recruiting experiences, and athletic successes. To kick things off, here's your host, Matt Trent.
Hi, welcome everyone to the AthleteEngine weekly podcast. Today we're joined by a very special guest, head coach of the UMKC men's and women's tennis program here in Kansas City, Kendell Hale. Kendell, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be on. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think for the listeners out there today, what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk to Kendell about the sport of tennis that he coaches. We wanted to learn a little bit more about UMKC. Just for the listeners out there, Kendell, what does UMKC stand for?
University of Missouri, Kansas City.
There you go. We're both in Kansas City, so I'm familiar with it, but I'm not sure we have listeners across, actually international listeners, Kendell. So we've got some folks that might not be quite as familiar with Kansas City as we are. But we wanted to talk about the UMKC tennis programs, have you speak a little bit about that. Sure. You've got a very interesting background, so love to hear a little bit more about your background and your passion for tennis. Obviously, you've devoted a large part of your life towards tennis, and I know there's a love for the sport there. Talk about the current season that you're in, which is the 2016 season, and then what that looks like for the rest of the year, and then also the future of the program. Again, for the listeners out there, if this is the first time you've listened to one of our podcasts, the idea behind this is we bring folks in our AthleteEngine ecosystem into a podcast so they can share their experiences and with other members. And if you're a tennis fan out there, which I am definitely looking forward to this conversation. So, Kendell, let's talk a little bit about UMKC, and maybe we start with men's tennis, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Our program has just come on the scene. I've been there 10 years. I was their first full-time coach. They had some success in the past, back in the early 90s, but they were just part-time in it there for a while. And I was across the street at Rutgers University for about 13 years, and I heard they were interviewing, and they were going to do some exciting things over at UMKC. So I interviewed and actually got the job. I saw that this was sort of like the beginnings of Microsoft, and so I jumped on early. So it's been 10 years, and we've had quite a bit of good success in those 10 years.
So you saw this opportunity and you thought, this is a tennis program that the university is getting behind and fans and obviously there's quite a bit of talent out there in the tennis world. Are you primarily finding folks in the Kansas City area? Or are you where do the majority of your recruits come from?
That's a very good question. I always try to start here in Kansas City because I think it's great to get local talent. But the recipe for our success has been a mixture of good local talent with international talent. Tennis is in the world; it's top 4 in the world as far as a spectator sport. So the popularity is amazing out there in the rest of the other countries. So there's a bigger pool of people to choose from there. But I like to have a good mixture of U.S. and international players.
Okay. Excellent. And so just, again, for the folks out there in AthleteEngine world that may not quite be as familiar with college tennis, what are the major differences that somebody would see in college tennis versus what they would see if they flipped on and watched Wimbledon or any of the major tennis that you've seen on pro TV?
Yeah, great question. Tennis is a team sport, so we start out with 3 doubles, and we are a Division I institution. I want to make that clear because a lot of people get us confused with the KU and MU, but we're Kansas City's only Division I university, so we represent in the WAC conference. And to get back to the question, we start with 3 doubles, and then we have 6 singles, and it's the first to 7 points. So the 3 doubles, if you win 2 out of the 3, then you win that doubles point, and then the 6 singles all count as 1 point. So it's a little bit different than what you see on the TV.
And so individual rankings, team rankings?
Absolutely. We do both. The fall season is a lot of individual tournaments to get individual rankings. And then in the spring, we have our team season, so we get team rankings.
Okay, so you actually so there's actually 2 seasons to a year. Is that right? Huh.
That's right. Yeah.
Very cool.
So it gives those individual players who are outstanding athletes, maybe on a team that's not so good, a chance to stand out as well.
Sure. So you have the unique situation. Well, I would think it would be unique. Maybe it's not. But you're actually coaching the men's program and the women's program. Can you talk a little bit about the women's program? And is that unique, Kendell, to be responsible for both?
It is a little bit. Yeah. I'm one of the last dying breed, I think. But it is a little unusual, but I enjoy both because there's different dynamics to both of them. And, I coach women a little bit different than I do the men. And, I've been doing that for 20 plus years. So I really enjoy the different dynamics there. So it is a little unusual.
So let's talk about the women's program at UMKC.
Well, it was not a good start. When I hired in, they were 0-58. They had the largest losing streak in the nation. So they had not won a match. And the previous coaches, they only played like 12 matches a year. So you can think that we had seniors on our team that never even won a match.
Wow.
So we turned that around. I mean, we had to change the whole perspective of winning and losing and everything in our girls' minds. And we ended up I think after the 4th year, we were in the conference championship in the Summit League.
Wow.
So we've made a major turnaround there.
So is there basically a difference in conferences then between the men's program and the women's program?
No, because we were in the Summit League. This is our 3rd year in the WAC. We just changed over 3 years ago, so we're now in the Western Athletic Conference, and we were in the Summit League. So
with all the different the conference realignments and schools and different conferences, who's in the WAC at this point in time?
Wow, we're all over the place. We got a pretty rough travel schedule. It goes all the way up to Seattle. It goes to Phoenix. We got Grand Canyon there, Seattle University, as I mentioned, Chicago State, and then we have all the way down in Texas. We have University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley there. So Bakersfield's in our conference. So Bakersfield, California. So you can see we're all over the place.
Kendell, can you tell us a little bit about UMKC's facilities, tennis facilities, and obviously where do you guys play? Where do you practice? If you could share a little bit with the audience about your facilities there at the school.
Yeah, we have actually a wonderful facility. It actually was the Midwest Facility of the Year. It's a Plaza Tennis Center. So if you mention the Plaza to anybody that's been to Kansas City, they'll know what you're talking about. It's just a great shopping district. And we have courts right there in the middle of it, and that's our home courts. And indoors, we play at Woodside Racket Club. And so we have 2 great venues to play our matches.
And so, again, the fall season starts when?
The fall season starts, it's about 3 weeks after classes start. So you're looking at probably the middle of September is usually when that fall season starts. And then in January, we're starting our spring season. I know it's not spring, but we're playing non-conference matches as soon as we arrive on campus in January.
Wow. So do you have assistant coaches, or do you have anybody else on the team that supports you?
Absolutely. We actually have 2 grad assistants, and I have an assistant. His name is Malcolm Harrison. He's a local guy here who actually played the same school I played at, Northwest Missouri State. And but he's was an incredible Division II player, and he's actually playing pro tours, the pro tour over in Europe in the summer. So he's playing a lot of professional tournaments as well, trying to make it on the scene there. And I have Tomas Patino and Eva Dalvai, who were 2 former players who are helping as grad assistants in there, and I couldn't say enough of great things about them.
Well, and it sounds like your assistant coaching staff, it sounds like those folks have a great pedigree in the sport as well.
Absolutely. I like to get guys that are loyal to our city and loyal to our program, that they understand what Kansas City's about and they can recruit well, but they also love the legacy and the heritage that they've left to instill into the new players that are on our teams.
Well, I would think that, again, and I have the fortunate opportunity to speak to a lot of different people in a lot of different sports, and from a collegiate perspective, athletics perspective, that continuity that exists, and it's such a unique opportunity for kids to go to school and have a playing career, and then still maintain an affiliation with the school even after they've graduated. And it's just something about that continuity for the folks they played with right behind them, and then even it goes back into new recruits and folks that come through. Is that something that you see in tennis?
Absolutely. We have all our players, our former players, they write what we call a legacy letter to the new players that come in, and we have a stack of these, and they're just so cool to read, and about their experience that they had at UMKC, and just about how quickly it goes. The 4 years just speed by, and so these guys really want to pass this on to the future generations of UMKC tennis.
So let's talk a little bit about the school, because obviously if there's some players out there who are in high school right now, or parents that are listening to the show, and they want to know a little bit more about UMKC, obviously, because it's collegiate tennis, it's in Division I. The school itself and academics obviously figure into the attractiveness of a school.
You bet. We have some great majors. The Henry Block School of Business is an amazing degree program that we have. We have a lot that have gone through that. Our medical school, we have one of the only 6-year med schools in the nation. Just our engineering programs have many players have gone through those. At law school, I mean, just all the professional degrees that are out there, UMKC has to offer.
So from an experience perspective, for somebody who's interested in UMKC, Kansas City, I know I've lived here for almost 20 years, and you've been in the area for quite a while as well. What's the attractiveness as far as Kansas City for folks that are looking at UMKC?
I asked my players that. The ones that have been here, I've asked them. I said, "What really attracted you to the recruiting process?" And they said the friendliness of the Midwest people are amazing. Everywhere they went, they were greeted kindly and were showed hospitality. And so I think that is something that we have to offer here in the Midwest, along with a great city. I mean, if you just look at how our city's grown, and some of the reports out saying we're like number one city to live in. So it's really cool to see how Kansas City has grown and just how we can give that experience to our college athletes.
Well, I think it's a great point, Kendell. We have a lot of things to offer in Kansas City. We've got, obviously several million people in the metropolitan area, but there's still that Midwest feel. There's still that feel of, what do they say about Kansas City? Kind of a small town feeling in a large city, or right, something to that effect. And I got to imagine folks from maybe other parts of the country, or to your point, other parts of the world who, want a metropolitan experience, but then again want some of the closeness and some of the aspects of maybe a little bit of smaller community. I would think that would be appealing. So again, what's the typical experience that a player would have at UMKC, whether it's it's on the men's side or on the women's side, in terms of an incoming freshman all the way through a graduating senior? What's a type of experience or that these individuals would have? When
you look at it after 4 years, I would hope that they still love the game of tennis, that it's still a passion for them. I think coaches can spoil that for players, where they just put them on the grind so much that the players never pick up a racket again. And I just hate to hear that stories of former athletes that have that experience. So I would hope they would love the game. But I would also hope they have a great degree, which they will from UMKC, and that they can use. And I like to use the old wooden quote that I won't know if I'm a success until after they have kids. And it's just something that we love to character build at UMKC. I think if we can create character skills such as hard work and discipline and things like that, it's going to create them for the job setting, for the real world. And then we can see many years later of the success that they have, and they always come back and they come to our alumni matches and talk about how their lives would be different if they hadn't come to UMKC to play tennis.
Well, I know as a business owner, there's a special place in terms of that a lot of companies have, and I'll speak for this personally, of folks that have participated in athletics, and And, tennis is a unique sport in the sense that whether it's doubles, so you're getting and being a part of a team, right? Whether it's doubles or you're just part of you're part of the collegiate team, or it's those individual singles matches where it's the one-on-one. It's the responsibility and the success and the challenges are associated with that person on the court. It's nobody else's fault, right? It's theirs for the win, or it's theirs for maybe they come up short. But that's that competitiveness that gets instilled. And again, when you combine that with a fun environment, and then on top of that with a great education, you've got some unbelievable graduates and folks entering into the workforce that to be productive not only in the workforce but also productive citizens. So I think it sounds like you've kind of instilled some of those values in your program.
That's right. I mean, I'm writing recommendations letters left and right. I mean, I'm getting a lot of emails of business owners who realize what an asset that college athletes actually are.
Kendell, I know, again, you obviously have a tremendous background and set of experiences in tennis. I'd like to learn a little bit more about you, your background, and where you developed your love for the game, and obviously it's been sustained over a period of time. So can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how'd you get involved in the game of tennis?
Yeah, actually I started in Atlanta, Texas. It's a small East Texas town, and I come from a middle-class family, and we couldn't afford the country club lessons and things like that. Luckily, I had a high school coach that she took me under her wing and was able to string rackets for free and give us rackets and stuff at a discount. So just a lot of things there that helped us develop. I mean, she took a group of people, and so I took her love from the game, and now I'm trying to spread that on. But without people like that in our lives, that really invest in us, I think my life would be a lot different if I didn't have people like that in my life. So I thank my mom for getting me started, but I also thank Juan Abel, who was a little bitty tennis coach from Thailand that her and her husband just took a group of small East Texas kids and developed a love of the game in our lives.
Wow. And it sounds like, based on what you've described about your program and your coaching philosophy and the experience that you try to create for the kids in your programs, that definitely influenced your thought process.
No, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at without people like that in my life, and I hope one day, some of my athletes can say the same thing.
Kendell, so obviously education, you have an advanced degree, and so education's played an important part in your life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I majored in psychology because there's a lot of psychology involved in tennis. Me and the golf coach, we have a lot of debates on which one's more mental. But anyway, I did get my undergrad in psychology, but I got my master's in religious education, and that's also a very important part of my life.
If you're a parent out there and you're listening to this interview, it's hopefully you're getting a better sense of Kendell and the UMKC program, but also his personal thoughts and philosophy on not only sports but on education as well. Kendell, we're right in the middle of the spring season right now, the 2016 spring season. What does the rest of the year look like in terms of schedule and what's going on with the program?
Yeah, we getting into WAC play right now. We just got back from New Mexico State when the guys' team went 2-0. We beat Seattle. And Chicago State. So we had a really good weekend there. So now we're actually going to be hosting a cluster here in Kansas City, not this weekend, but the next weekend. So we play the other 3 remaining schools in our conference. And the girls, we're heading to Chicago this weekend to play 3 really tough teams. So, yeah, we're in the thick of it and just enjoying the competition and just hoping that we can pull some of these out.
So, Kendell, what's the best way for folks out there to follow the UMKC program, whether it's the schedule or the players on the team or learning a little bit more about you and your assistant coaching staff?
Yeah, you can actually follow us on Facebook. That's a great way. It's UMKC Tennis. I actually have my own personal website used for recruiting and various things to show for families. We do a blog, those kind of things on there about our season. And that's www.kendellhale.com. So that's one way, a couple of ways of doing it, or just UMKC Kangaroo website. So
there you go, the Kangaroos. I can't believe I didn't ask you what the nickname of the school was.
That's right. We're the Kangaroos. We're one of two. Actually, I just found this out, but the Akron Zips their mascot is a kangaroo, and our girls team just went there this last fall, and it was an individual competition, but it was sort of a battle of the roos.
Yeah.
We had a good time and enjoyed it. Yeah.
Excellent. Kendell, where do you see the program in 5 years from now?
Yeah. We've had some good success. I mean, we've won 4 Summit League championships. We've made the NCAA national tournament. Our problem is when we get into the tournament, just like the basketball one that's going on right now, we end up playing either the Big 12 champion or we end up playing the number 1 team in the nation, which was UCLA. So we had Baylor, Oklahoma, and Texas and UCLA as our first round competition. So we want to win some rounds in the NCAA championship. That's a big goal. We love to bring the rings home, winning conference championships, but we want to win some rounds in the NCAA tournament.
Again, folks, we've been fortunate enough today to have Kendell Hale on the show. Kendell is the UMKC head coach for the women and men's tennis program here in Kansas City. Thank you, Kendell, for stepping away from practice to jump on a call with us. Certainly glad that you were able to join us today.
It was a lot of fun, Matt. I really appreciate you having me on. I think you got a great thing here going with AthleteEngine, and I just wish you all the success.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening to the show today, and we'll see you all next time.
You've been listening to the AthleteEngine podcast, hosted by Matt Trent. If you are an athlete, coach, recruiter, or fan, be sure to check out AthleteEngine.com, where you can connect with athletes around the world. Our podcast is available on our social network at AthleteEngine.com, as well as on iTunes. You can always find previous episodes of the podcast in the archives section. Join us next week as we feature another AthleteEngine member and hear their stories of success.